What's up guys, it's Jamey. Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a review of my Rolex Submariner. So I've had this watch for over 2 years now. This is the third Rolex that I have purchased. So I think I'll have a good understanding of some of the different models that are out there and be able to give a good overall review and impressions of having this particular model, comparing it to some of the other watches that I've had. When you're watching the video, if you could support the channel by giving a quick like. Also, if you're new to the channel and you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do so. I come out with new videos like this every week, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any new content. So to begin, the model that I have here is the Rolex 116613 LB. This is the two-tone Rolex Submariner in the gold and the blue face with the sunburst dial. I purchased this in December 2018. I think at that point in time the retail was $13,400. Purchased directly from an authorized dealer, new. They have since discontinued this particular model. In 2020, Rolex announced the next generation of the Submariner. It's the 126 series. If you are not someone that's well versed in the Rolex world, when you see this model compared to the current generation or even the previous generation, it's going to be very difficult to tell the differences between the two, because what Rolex does, which I really like about it, is they make subtle changes throughout their models as time goes on, so these designs are just very, very timeless. One thing to note, you might hear a lot of people refer to this watch as the Bluesy. Rolex, if you aren't familiar, the Rolex community likes to they come up with nicknames for a lot of the different watches. So this watch is known as the Bluesy. They have Pepsi, they have Coke, they have Batman, Batgirl, Hulk. So I might refer to this as Bluesy. That's just a nickname within the community that they call the blue-faced two-tone Submariner. So as I mentioned before, this is actually my third Rolex. The Rolex that I had before this was the Rolex Hulk, or it was just the green-faced Submariner, the 116610 LV. And then before that, I had the first Rolex that I bought back in 2009, was just the ceramic GMT Master II with the black face. Looking back at when I did purchase this watch, I definitely made a tremendous mistake. If you look at prices of the Rolex Hulk right now, the watch has since been discontinued. The new generation has a little bit of a different look to it. That watch has gone through the roof. It's now selling for, mid to upper $20,000. When I got rid of it, I think I sold it for about $10,000. I looked at it as being a good deal at the time. Granted, this was 2 years ago. It looked like a good deal because I ended up selling it for more money than I paid for it. I paid retail through an authorized dealer at that moment as well. To be honest, when I look at the Hulk, I didn't really like the green. I mean, I actually just got the watch because it was sought after, but I really didn't have much great feelings when I put it on. The green just really didn't do much for me. This watch I've actually wanted for a very long time. I have pictures of myself actually trying this on probably 5 years before I actually purchased this, so it's something that I've always gravitated towards. This blue up against the yellow gold is just a timeless look. It looks so regal and it's just super classy. It's the greatest blend, I think, of sporty and classy that you can get out there. I mean, I feel comfortable with this in a suit just as much as I do sitting by the pool with swim trunks on. It can go either way. There's a little bit of a flash, but there's not too much because you do have the two-tone aspect of it. But with the sporty nature, you can still fly under the radar and wear it with much more casual attire. It's the one watch that I've actually had out of all three of them where I look at it on my wrist 2 years later and it still amazes me. It's just such a good looking watch. When you look at the sunburst dial, it in the way that the light reflects on it and the different looks it has depending upon the lighting, it's unbelievable. This is the one watch that I've actually had people compliment me, like in elevators, just on the street. People will just notice this watch more than any of the ones that I have. Now you might see that as being a negative, and I completely understand that. So this version of the Submariner was originally launched in 2009, and then the newer version was just announced last year in 2020. So it had a very long run. Now throughout that time period, there are some slight improvements or advancements that Rolex does, or different changes that Rolex makes to the watches throughout that lifespan. But for the most part, there weren't any drastic changes in that time period. When this was originally launched, it had the dial, wasn't this sunburst dial, it had a matte blue dial, and that only ran for a couple years before they went back to this sunburst version. And I think it's because most people prefer this sunburst dial. It has much more depth, it's much more attractive, I think. So even though the watch that I had before this, the Rolex Hulk, is worth more than this watch to this day, I think right now you can buy this secondhand probably in the $14,000, $15,000 price point, whereas the Hulk is selling for, depending upon condition and year, $22,000 to $28,000 I've seen. I still prefer this watch. I think that when purchasing Rolex watches, there's that fine line of getting the watch that is highly sought after and then buying the watch that you want. When you are spending a lot of money on something like a watch, I don't want to buy something that I spend $10,000 and then it's worth $2,000 after the fact. I want to have something that retains its value or appreciates it in value, but I also want to get something that I enjoy. And so would I say that I regret that decision? Yes, I probably would have just preferred to have held on to the watch and just bought this separately and just kept them both, mainly because of the value aspect of the Hulk. But I would never prefer, when you look at price to price, if it was all things equal, I would never prefer the Rolex Hulk over this watch, just because I think this, for me, I think this is just a much better looking watch. One of the things that some people look down on this watch is the fact that it's two-tone. A lot of times people think that you either go the stainless steel route, or if you're going to go gold, you go full gold. And they'll say that people that get two-tone, they're buying the two-tone just because they can't afford the full gold. Realistically, I can't. I wasn't going to spend the $38,000 or whatever to buy this in full gold. But realistically, I don't think I would want that watch. I think that having this two-tone, it keeps it a little bit more casual than something that's full gold. As well, like the full gold watch is going to be a little bit softer, so it's nice just having the center links being the 18 karat gold as opposed to the entire watch and bracelet. So the Submariner also comes in a two-tone version with a black face and a black bezel. I can understand why people would like that. I guess there might be certain instances where that's more wearable. However, when you think about a two-tone Submariner, everyone's initial thought is the Bluesy with the blue face. I think that even in resale, the blue face fetches more money than the black face would. In the 2 years of owning this, one of the things that I really have gotten to appreciate is just the glide lock clasp, giving you that variability in the bracelet size. Compared to my GMT, it didn't have this variability. This was originally constructed in the Submariner watch and the Submariner bracelet to accommodate like a diver's wetsuit. I don't dive. I would not wear this watch while diving, even if I did. But the nice thing about it is that when it is a little bit hotter out or colder, you can, and your body naturally expands or contracts based upon the heat or coldness, you're able to vary the width of the bracelet ever so slightly without having to remove any links. So last year, Rolex did come out with an updated version of their Submariner line, and The big changes are just bringing the case size from 40 to 41. The bracelet's a little bit wider. They also put in the latest version of their movement, so you're going to have a little bit longer of a power reserve. When I compare the watch I have now versus that watch, I'm not feeling any need to upgrade to get to the latest version. I think they're very hard to come by as well. And I think that if you do try to get it on the secondary market, you're going to be having to spend above retail, which I believe is going to even be more expensive than what this watch would be. So I haven't found really any need or desire to want to upgrade. Granted, I haven't had one in hand right now. Some of the differences, the subtle differences, are things like the writing on the face. In the version of the watch that I have, it's in gold, whereas the new one, it's white. I actually prefer the gold, but like I said, I haven't had it in person. You can see it in pictures. I don't think that that really translates all that well. I want to have it like in hand and compare side by side. Once I'm able to do that, if I'm ever able to do that, because it's really hard to go into a Rolex dealer and have any stock or inventory in hand to try on. But I think that's when I'd be able to make that determination to see like really which one that I like better. As of right now, those differences aren't great enough for me to either like lust for that new version of the Rolex Submariner. Overall, I'm extremely happy with this watch. I've had secondary dealers reach out to me on several different occasions offering to buy this watch off of me, and I've had no desire to. If there was something that I wanted to purchase, there's a different watch that I wanted, then maybe I would do it. But realistically, like, this watch fulfills my needs that I have right now. The only other thing that I would do is I would still keep this watch. I'd like to just add another one on top of it. And so with the other watch I would want is probably something like a Daytona, just a stainless steel Daytona. So you can have both of those options available. I wouldn't want to get like another gold watch. Like I said, I don't think it would make sense for me to upgrade to the latest version, the 126 series model, in the same configuration. I would more so want to get something either stainless steel or go like the vintage route. When looking at issues or anything like that, Rolexes, you know, they're bulletproof. My first Rolex GMT that I had, I purchased in 2009. I think I had that thing for like 10 years before I got rid of it. And I had no issues whatsoever. Every single Rolex I had, it's been bulletproof. Servicing, like, I haven't even done that. Like, the first Rolex I got, I never even serviced it. And it just was perfectly fine through those 10 years that I had it for. So that's just a really nice thing about Rolex in general. I like the fact that their designs are timeless. They hold their value. They're bulletproof. You don't have to baby them like some of the other watches that are out there. And because they hold their value so well and they are so highly desired, if you do want to flip out of them, or for whatever reason, you know, you want to get rid of your watches and get something out of it, like, you're not going to lose much, if anything. There can also be a situation where you make money off of it if you hold on to it long enough, or it ends up being like a super popular model. So for me, like, there's certain watch brands that you stay in. If anyone's like first entering into that luxury high-end watch market, my recommendation is always Rolex, because it's a can't-lose proposition. They're never going to go out of style. You're never going to lose any value. Like the Rolex, when this initially came out, they initially launched the two-tone version of the Submariner in 1984, and it still looks very similar to this watch today. Definitely there are differences, there's enhancements or whatnot, but the overall aesthetic and design heritage is 100% the same. So looking at the condition of the watch, you know, you are going to, with the polished center links in the gold, you are going to get some micro scratches across the band. And, you know, this is something that's evident with any of these watches that Rolex makes that has these polished center links. Just these little micro scratches. When you get your first scratch, it is a very devastating thing, but you really quickly learn to live with them, and they're inevitable, they're going to happen, and it just kind of shows that wear and character of the watch. That's actually something that you wear. I've never had any of my Rolexes polished. Not really something that I worry about. I don't really care about all the little tiny scratches that occur in the watch band. Overall, this thing has just been absolutely bulletproof. If I could give one critique on the watch, I would just say that I wish that it had a longer power reserve. Right now it's at 48 hours, and that's like the one thing where I would want to maybe go to that next model. Like I said, I don't really wear my watch routinely on a daily basis, so if I do wear it and I don't wear it for like a couple days, it stops. I have to go and like wind it and reset the time and sometimes the date as well. So having like a little bit more power reserve, I think would be helpful. It's not a huge deal, definitely not a deal breaker. The 48 hours is fine, but that's just the only, if I could find any critique, that would be the only one that I could mention. So that's all I had for you guys today in doing a review of my Rolex Submariner after 2 years of ownership. If you have any questions about this watch or any of the other Rolexes that I have owned or just watches in general, please comment below. Also, please remember to like the video and subscribe to my channel. I'll catch you guys in the next one.